recording. So,
All right.
Hey YouTube, this is UngarToTheMax here, coming at you with another episode of the Sports Room. And today I am here with two returning veterans and a newbie, or as I call him, a rookie. But don't worry, he'll be fine. I'm sure he's got a lot of great opinions. So first, let's introduce the rookie, Ben Fedor. I said your last name correctly, yes?
Yes, it's Fedor. You
Okay.
know what I like to think of it like this? You ever watch the movie Grown Ups?
Yes.
You know the main character, Lenny Fedor? How they pronounce his last name?
All right, I
His
got
last
it.
name is spelled the same way and pronounced the same way.
Gotcha. All right, to the left of Ben, or at least on my screen, he's to the left, we have Collin Anderson. And then above him, representing the Cleveland Monsters, who are the AHL affiliate of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and a diehard hockey fanatic, we've got Chris Link. So welcome to the show, you guys. How are you guys doing?
Oh, it's great to be here, Josh. It's an honor to be back on the show, and it's an honor to talk about sports with my three best friends in the whole world.
Okay. So this is going to be more of a general sports topic. We're not really focusing on a specific sport. Like, we'll talk about many different sports and different subjects within them, but this whole thing is just kind of general sports. So let's start with that. So I know soccer is like the most popular sport in the world statistically, but just exclude that for a minute. If you had to think about purely the game, just not like the league or like the TV style, just purely the game, if you had to rank them from like most predictable to the most unpredictable, like when you attend a game, you don't know what you're gonna see. You know what I mean? How would you rank them? So your options are hockey, baseball, football, and basketball. So let's start with Ben on this one.
Okay. So my familiarity with hockey is not that great.
Okay.
Soccer I've not watched a lot, but I have worked soccer games at my college.
Like I said, we're excluding soccer for right now.
Okay.
So just focus on hockey, baseball, football, and basketball. Just focus on those four.
Baseball can be very unpredictable.
Okay. So would you put that one?
Baseball, football, basketball.
And then hockey would be 4?
I would say it'd be tied with football.
Okay. Fair. How about you, Chris? How would you rank them?
So one is most predictable or least predictable?
One is the least predictable, yes.
All right, so I'm going to go with one as hockey based on the game we saw last night between Calgary and Dallas. Calgary had a 3-0 lead, and they gave up 7 unanswered goals to lose to Dallas. I don't think anyone would have predicted that. So hockey's my least predictable. Then least predictable is baseball because, like Ben said, baseball can be very unpredictable.
Fair.
Basketball. And then most predictable for me has to be football.
Very
Why football instead of basketball?
Because there are some unpredictabilities in basketball. Like, a player could have a terrible, awful night when they're usually on fire.
Okay. So retaliate on your points in 1 second. But first, what is your take on this, Collin?
Let's see. Well, I mean, we're going to have to go with number one, the hockey being the most unpredictable. I mean, it's so many games. The play of action, like any sort of touch of the puck could either go into the goal or not. and it's based off of how well the players are doing. So hockey is number one and most unpredictable. I'm
Okay.
going to put football at the bottom with most predictable because of the 16 games per season, and it's not enough games to fully determine of who's going to do the best. But I mean, momentum could change on a dime of that game at the same time. But
Right.
Sure,
Soon
wait,
to be 17.
wait, I'm sorry. Football's 3. I meant to say was baseball. Baseball is a game of statistics. What's the batting average of each player, and just like a lot of math and quadratics and stuff like that. And people rely on that to make a team better. So baseball is pretty predictable if you're a really good stat nerd. And so in order to be hockey, basketball, football, baseball.
Very interesting. So the way I see it is hockey would be the most unpredictable because when you go to a hockey game, you don't know if you're going to see a 3-0 shutout. You don't know if you're going to see like a game that ends or that is tied 1-1 and goes into a shootout, or like if you go to a Stanley Cup playoff game, maybe you'll see a game like I think it was the 2013 Stanley Cup Finals game 1 that went into like 3 overtimes, I think it was.
Yep.
So that's why I would put hockey 1. I would actually put baseball 2. I'm surprised none of you really did. Because with baseball, it's kind of the same thing where when you go to a game, you have no idea like when a home run's going to be hit. Like you could see a fly ball that you're like, oh, that's not going to be a home run. And then it somehow ends up in the seats. Or like, you know, a perfect game and a no-hitter are such rare feats in the game. Like you could be at the game where that happens. Like it's total luck of the draw.
Yes.
Or kind of the same idea as I said with Stanley Cup. Like, although with baseball it doesn't matter World Series or postseason, but you could see a game that goes into 17 innings for crying out loud, you know, and ends on a walk-off 3-run home run, for example. So
exactly.
That's why I would say baseball is the second least predictable. I would say football is third because basically with football, I get it. Like you don't know if you're going to see a game go into overtime or if you're going to see a team blow a 28-3 lead. You know what team I'm talking about, I hope.
We all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it. Sorry, Sports Live in the ATL. I had to bring it up. But most of the time, you kind of know what you're going to see with football. It's going to be, you know, handoff for 1 or 2 yards, pass for 5 yards. You know, sometimes like the quarterback will hand the ball off to the running back and he'll break a big runoff like Derrick Henry did in the Thursday night game against Jacksonville, where I think he went for like 99 yards. Or like a big pass play, like what Odell Beckham Jr. did on the Sunday night football game against the Giants. Or, I'm sorry, against the Cowboys when he was with the Giants. That's what I meant to say. And then I would put basketball as the most predictable because it's pretty much just, you know, dribble the ball up, pass it around, and then it's jump shot, layup, dunk, and different variations of those. Like an alley-oop is just a variation of, you know, a pass to a shot, which could either end in a layup or a dunk, whatever. And then you have like 3-pointers or mid-range game, you know. But it's all kind of the same.
Brown who bricked a dunk.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're looking at the big picture, it's just sort of, it's not about the shots they make, it's the whole game momentum. If a player gets heated up, inspires the other team, they can turn it around. I mean, it was important during the 2016 finals when the Cavs were playing against the Warriors. there was a stretch of time where neither team was scoring, and if any one of them would have scored earlier, it would provide momentum. It would have swung that momentum.
Right. 80. You're
And
talking.
you just don't know where that momentum is going to be. That's where the unpredictability is going to come from.
Yes. No, I don't, Colin. I don't disagree with you on that. I'm saying because you're 100% right. Like nobody could have predicted that the Cavaliers were even going to come back from a 3-1 deficit to win that series. So I 100% agree. All I'm saying is that in the pure game, it's pretty much just, bring the ball up. One team plays offense, the other team plays defense, That's all. But I totally get what you're saying, and I do agree with you. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, we all know that, what the current situation is, and that, the WNBA, the NBA, and the NHL are all in bubbles, or as the WNBA is calling it, the wobble, which I think is kind of creative.
Imagine if they, I forget.
And we've had some surprises so far, like the Portland Trailblazers and the Orlando Magic, both as the 8 seeds, winning Game 1, although the Bucks and Lakers came back and won Game 2. But in general, do you feel like the playoffs have lost a bit of their steam, or if you will, because they're in the because they're in the bubble format? We'll start with Chris on this one.
It depends on the situation, because what the NHL is doing, they're just doing no fans whatsoever. If they were doing what the NBA is doing with, the virtual fans, then yeah, I can see there's a little bit of oomph lost there, but still not. But still just a little bit. But with the NHL, the only funny thing, or the only thing that they're doing is that the Jumbotron is saying some weird stuff. Like if you've seen it, it'll say, "Please exit your couch safely," or "Tonight's attendance 0," or "Thank you to our fans," and they've got industrial fans in the seats. That was pretty funny. That was during a Blues game.
I did not know that.
I will have to send you the video later. It's hilarious.
Okay.
But the NHL not having fans is a bit odd, and you'd think they'd do something like virtual fans, like what the NBA is doing.
Okay.
So yeah, I lost a little bit of oomph there.
Okay. How about we go to Ben next?
I think it depends on many circumstances, but from what I'm seeing, people keep talking about the playoffs, especially with the NBA and the NHL. Even though I don't really watch hockey that much.
We'll work on that.
Yes. I was with a few friends watching that overtime game that went 5 overtimes, the Jackets game. When you have something like that, it creates more steam because people are like, when is this going to end? I want to watch this. I want to see what happens.
That's fair. And then we'll go to Colin next.
All right, so I think it's just circumstances. I mean, just the whole situation it's something that they have to deal with. That's the first thing. But with that said, I don't think it loses that much steam. I mean, if people are watching through the playoffs. Sure, it's going to be a little bit different. You're not going to have the fans there, but but we have the next best thing, which is through television and cable, and we're still having a good time with friends and family watching those games. So
right
for the whole thing, sure, it may seem weird, but we still have sports. So
yes,
it's just something that we have to get used to for right now. It's sort of like when you break your car, you get it damaged and you have to do a loaner. Sure, it looks a little different and you don't like it how it runs because you may like the turn radius a little bit better on your car that you broke. But right now, you just got to deal with the loaner car, and that's how I see with the sort of like structured bubble setting with like the WNBA, MLS, NBA, and NHL.
That is a very interesting analogy. I never would have thought of comparing the current situation to a broken car, but I kind of see what you're saying. I like it.
I actually thought it was really clever.
Yeah, very inventive.
That's very clever.
So contrary to the sports we just mentioned, Major League Soccer, MLS, whatever you want to call it, the WNBA, the NBA, and the NHL, the MLB decided, you know what? We're just going to let teams play in their own stadium, and we'll have cardboard fans. And, well, we've seen how well that's worked out.
How many teams are infected?
Let's see. The Marlins have been infected. The Reds got a little breakout of it.
I know the Cards did.
Cardinals?
The Mets.
Yeah.
And the Mets are new.
Yeah, I just saw that the Mets got infected with it.
I mean, we're talking about the MLB now?
Yeah. So, Are you surprised that, like, Major League Baseball didn't do a bubble format? Ben, I know this is your wheelhouse, so I'll let you go last. So,
Okay.
because I want to give you as much time as I can. So,
Okay.
yeah, I want you to, because you seem to be a baseball wizard.
Yes. Or I hope I am.
What are your magical powers?
Pitching.
What's your
Ben
best pitch?
was a pretty good pitcher in high school. I can vouch for him on that.
Wait, what's your best pitch?
A strike.
No, but like a four-seam fastball, changeup, slider, splitter, what?
Just a regular four-seam fastball located for strikes.
Gotcha. I'm pretty good at throwing the splitter, actually. And I have a decent changeup. I'm working on my fastball.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's a curveball per se, but like what I do is I use these first two fingers and I just grip the ball on the seam like that and, throw it. So I don't know if that would be considered a curveball necessarily, but
It depends on
the
what
movement,
it does.
I think.
I don't know. Anyway, getting back to the topic, that was a fun little detour, but let's get back to it.
Yes.
So, like I said, before the 60-game season happened, or began, I should say, and we had all these teams come out with the virus as we already went through, the Marlins, Reds, Mets, Cardinals. They were in labor disputes about how many games and are we going to do a bubble format and all this and that. And based on what I've heard anyway, it was the owners who said they didn't want to do a bubble format because they wanted the teams to have some sense of normalcy, I guess, by playing in their home stadiums. So, again, Ben, I'll let you go last because I can tell you're a baseball nerd, if you will.
I'm fine with that.
Trust me, when I say that, I mean that in a very nice way. Like, you're very knowledgeable.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, cool. So let's start with Chris on this one. What are your thoughts on, the whole Major League Baseball situation?
Well, I feel like they should have actually done a bubble. Playing in their home stadiums with the cardboard fans wasn't a bad idea on paper, but in practice, it's kind of working. But at the same time, so many teams are getting, these outbreaks that it's just not working out well.
Okay. Colin, what's your take
Okay,
on
so-
the whole thing?
All right, so here's my opinion on the entire thing. They didn't want to do a bubble. That's fine. I mean, but the next best thing would be to at least try to limit the spread, which means you gotta have strict like social distancing. You gotta make sure that there's not a sense of contagion, and that's the part where I felt like that whole thing fell apart. The Cardinals players that got sick, they went to a casino and enjoyed a night out, and then pretty much a bunch of them got sick. So the Miami Marlins, they went out in town and they all got sick. Obviously, what was needed was some sort of strict guidelines so that players would so that would prevent the players to get sick in the first place. The MLS, the NBA, and the WNBA, and the NHL. I mean, they could have chosen to do a bubble or not, but they also had strict guidelines that players had to follow, including tests and making sure that people weren't and they're just strict enforcing that rule.
I think it said for
one more thing, I gotta say this.
Okay.
One more thing about the MLB that showed that the whole thing was a little bit of a problem was when the government of Canada kicked out the Blue Jays out of their own stadium, and they had to go find somewhere else. And it turned out that it would have to be in Buffalo. So if you want to have
their minor league affiliate
situation, have that whole situation with Toronto be the case.
Okay. So, Chris, I'll let you present your rebuttal in 1 second, but I want to hear Ben's take on this whole thing. And then we'll get.
Colin made a great point.
Go ahead.
Colin made a great point about the rules and how it needs to be enforced a little bit better. I'm disappointed in some of the baseball players for the Cleveland Indians, Clevenger and Plesac, because they violated the rules and they were optioned for a little while. The one thing I will say is,
actually did worse because he lied about it too.
yes, that was sad to hear. Yes, they did not use a bubble method per se, but what they did do with the schedule is remake the schedule where they're only playing certain teams in certain areas. So it's almost like a bubble, but it's not really a bubble.
Right. Just to clarify what you're saying, it's geographic based. So in the case of the Indians, originally they were supposed to play the National League West this season. So they would have played the San Francisco Giants, San Diego Padres, Colorado Rockies, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the Arizona Diamondbacks. Thank you, Colin. But as Ben was saying, the schedule got modified. So now we're playing the American League Central, as always. So the Kansas City Royals, Minnesota Twins, Chicago White Sox, and Detroit Tigers. And we're also playing the National League Central. So the Pittsburgh Pirates, the St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, who the Indians play every year because they're their in-state rivals. And there's the thing called the Ohio Cup.
Yes.
Milwaukee Brewers, and my favorite team in all of baseball, as you can see by this pennant right here, the Chicago Cubs. Yes, they are my favorite team in all of baseball. But the Cleveland Indians are my favorite team in the American League. Just wanted to point that out.
That's fine.
Yes, but I'm sorry. But I was rooting for the Cubs in the 2016 World Series. But as long as the Indians are not playing the Cubs, I will root for the Indians. Just wanted to point that out. But Chris,
okay.
you were going to present some type of rebuttal, so go ahead.
Well, actually, I was going to state some statistics I found about both the NBA and NHL playoffs is that the players for both bubbles had to be tested at least 6 times a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
That's really all I wanted to say.
Okay, I thought
I wanted to add on to Colin's points.
Okay, got it. I thought you had a rebuttal or disagreed, but that's okay. Which, if if you disagree with something, that's perfectly fine. And I'll let you have a chance to respond if you disagree with something that one of your fellow Zoomers says. Your fellow, I don't like the word Zoomer. How about Zoom analyst? We'll go with that.
I
Okay.
like that.
All right.
Zoom analyst.
Okay.
So if you don't agree, go ahead. As long as you just do it respectfully. That's all. That's all I ask. If you disagree,
Exactly.
just do it respectfully. Let's try to keep it clean. Okay?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Right. So, we're talking about how certain leagues use bubbles and certain leagues aren't. Which the UFC, by the way, was the first sport to return. For some reason, nobody mentions that. I don't know why. And they have been using a bubble-ish, like for a while, for a few fights. They had a thing called UFC Fight Island just outside of Saudi Arabia
Yeah.
on Yaz Island. That's where UFC 251 went down.
That's pretty cool.
And then they also are utilizing the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. That's where many fights have been done, including UFC 252, where Cleveland's own Stipe Miocic defended the heavyweight belt in a trilogy grudge match against Daniel Cormier, and Miocic won that by unanimous decision to retain the belt. And Cormier subsequently retired afterwards. I still will say this to the day I die. It was not the Cleveland Cavaliers who brought the first championship to Cleveland in 2016. It was not the Lake Erie Monsters, now called the Cleveland Monsters, even though I was at that game, and so were you, Chris.
I was there.
June 11th, 2016, Oliver Bjorkstrand with like 0.4 seconds left in regulation, I think it was.
1.9.
Oh, wow, I was way off.
1.9 in the first overtime.
Oh, I was totally off. But thank you for correcting me. But
You're welcome.
when Miocic defeated Fabrizio Verdum at UFC 198 in Curitiba, Brazil, that to capture the UFC heavyweight championship, in my opinion, that's what started the Cleveland championship trifecta. Now, I know many people will disagree with me on that. I'm probably one of the few people who, say
Well,
that.
I mean, Miocic was at the Cavs parade, so he does count in all of this.
Yes. And I will say that because Miocic won the belt, the Octagon came here to Cleveland for UFC 203, and I was at that. I will post a link for that playlist in the description of this video. But anyway, my main point with all of that was, like, all of these leagues are doing the bubble format, like we've been talking about, and we have the NFL season coming up, and some teams have said they're going to play in front of no fans. Other teams have said they're going to do limited capacity. Some teams are still undecided. But how do you guys feel about the whole thing? Should the NFL play with no fans? Should they play with limited capacity? What do you think the NFL should do? So let's start with Collin on this one.
Okay, so I think what was important for the NFL to do was to make sure that they were organized and making it go one way or the other. Having it where there are several teams that have it limited capacity, some teams with no fans, and apparently some teams on the fence doesn't sound like the whole thing is organized, and it just shows where it sounds like the owners are going to try to recoup costs from this whole from the pandemic that's going to be. And it would have been really cool if the NFL would have got together, made a plan, and decided, hey, we're going to do it this way and have a plan, and it just seemed like all these teams are just at a free-for-all. But I mean, I understand why it seems to be the fight. But if I were a NFL owner, it would be tough for me to choose between doing limited capacity to save money because we're going to take a hit if we do not have fans at our stadium from revenue from from tickets, and on the other hand, if any one of the people in that stadium or any one of the players gets sick, it's going to cost us, and it may impact our team greatly. That it may affect our overall. You just see teams like as a product. If the product isn't that great, people are not going to come. So,
Right.
I honestly have to give the NFL owners like a bit of slack, saying like it's tough, but I wish that my wish is that they were more organized.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to Ben on this one.
Collin, do you think it's going to be similar to baseball?
Well,
Good
I
question.
mean, it's as long as they have a plan in place and enforce the guidelines imposed by the CDC, they should be fine. But it's just as long as there are teams that just don't go out and be reckless and have reckless actions. I mean, it's just simple. Just follow the guidelines. They should be fine.
Okay. Chris, before we get to you, I just realized when we were talking about baseball, I forgot to let Ben discuss the whole unwritten rule controversy in Fernando Tatis. My apologies about that. I promised you we would get to that. And
Okay.
so hold on a second, Chris, because I promised I would let Ben do this. So the floor is yours. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay, so with Fernando Tatis Jr., the whole controversy is about he was at the batter's box having his at-bat. It was a 3-0 count with the bases loaded.
This was in Texas
And he
against
chose to swing away.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And he ignores, or it seems like he did not look at the coach for the sign for him what to do. Should he be criticized for hitting a grand slam? I'm not sure if you should be criticized. I doubt it for sure. But when you decide to ignore the coach, that's what angered or made some people respond in a certain way. Because it's old baseball rules where you listen to the coach on what to do. That may be something that could be needed to be considered to change, because if you want to get younger fans in the game, you got to allow it to have more action and some, how should I say it, spontaneity? Is that the correct word I want to use?
I guess.
I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And when they keep harping on these old rules, it makes younger people or the younger fans say, like, this isn't fun to watch unless you like a good controversy. Why are you getting on this guy for being very productive?
Right. Like, I remember there was a similar situation with Tim Anderson, I think it was, with the White Sox like a few seasons ago with the bat flip. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. The whole bat flips that started with Jose Bautista.
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
And Roughneck Odor in that fight. Roughneck Odor in that whole fight was.
I made a video about this. That Rangers Blue Jays rivalry, while it was a thing for the brief time, it was a great rivalry, and you could tell that they hated each other. That Game 5 in the ALDS, I believe it was in 2015, right? 2015?
Yeah, 2015.
Yes, that was one of the best games I've ever seen. And one of the craziest. I don't really like Jose Bautista because of the whole bat flip thing. Although I'm not against bat flips. So and I get why he did it, but with how crazy the whole game was, I get like it was heat of the moment, but I wasn't thrilled that he did it. Do you get kind of what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, that was one of the best games. Didn't love the backflip, but I understand it. Okay, so back to the NFL. Chris, you were up next.
My thoughts on this whole thing is I want to see how it plays out. If the NFL does not violate the CDC guidelines and they play by the rules of the CDC and no one gets infected, well, that's a good thing. But if something happens where anyone, a player, a coach, staff, a fan that goes to a game gets sick, then I have a feeling the NFL is going to be under heavy scrutiny for it, and Roger Goodell's never going to hear the end of it.
Okay, and then Ben, and then I have a follow-up question, but I'll let you go first, Ben.
If baseball decides to not have fans in the NHL, the NFL should just go with that crowd, go with that boat, because we don't really know when this is going to end, the COVID-19. Why should we take any more risk? Yes, I see why they want to have fans, because they want to recoup costs, because when you're operating, you own a stadium, you have operating expenses, you have employees you have to pay, etc. But at the end of the day, what's more important, making money or keeping your employees and etc. healthy?
Okay.
I'm not even sure that we should even play football this year, to be honest with you.
I'm in agreement.
Okay. Expand on that one.
There's some college conferences with football that have already canceled their season. Why should the NFL can't play when there are already some college sports that are already canceled for the fall?
I'm going to have to rebuttal for that.
Okay, go ahead, Collin.
Okay, there's a difference between college sports and college football and the NFL. College football is the higher power is the Power 5 conference with the Pac-12, ACC, Big 12, Big 10, and SEC.
Yes.
And the whole thing was that it wasn't the SEC and the ACC said, yeah, we want to play football. Meanwhile, the Big 10 and the Pac-12 were like, no way, Jose, we don't want to play football. And I mean, they're canceling the season because of circumstances and cultures and what they believe in. Well, not what they believe in, but what their perspective is. Like, I've heard that the Big 10 got a panel of health experts, and they said the reality is that it would be impossible to make sure that even we have had 20% capacitation, 20% limited capacity, that we would be able to run through the entire season without a hitch. It's just something that they did not want to risk, and that's how the Big 10 canceled their season, and soon the Pac-12, because although they didn't even look at the data the Big 10 provided, they canceled it because there would be no Rose Bowl without the Big 10 saying, yeah, we would play football.
Although I do remember, I think it was the 2014 season, I believe it was, when Wisconsin played TCU in the Rose Bowl. So you don't necessarily need a Pac-12 team to be in the Rose Bowl. I think it was.
Yeah, but tradition. But I'm just saying, tradition is like Big 10 versus the Pac-12.
Yes. No, I agree. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think it was 2014 when Wisconsin played
Yeah.
TCU.
Yes, that was that one.
I don't remember why TCU was in the Rose Bowl off the top of my head, but anyway, I get what you're saying.
So basically, the NFL is a business. I mean, like it or not, it's a series of franchises that are owned by the owners. Meanwhile, the college football is a program run by the school, not necessarily a business, but it sells money because of marketing.
Fair enough. And I guess my follow-up question would be, Major League Baseball, since they're doing no fans, they're piping in artificial crowd noise, and I've actually seen on national broadcasts on Fox and Fox Sports 1, they're using like digital fans like from MLB The Show. So if the NFL does that, or NFL or college football, either one, would the game still, I don't know why I'm having trouble speaking, still feel authentic to you, or would it feel different? Start with Ben on this one.
You know what? On this one, I would say it's going to feel a little inauthentic, I mean, just because we already know that it's not the fans really pumping up the sounds, literally sitting in the stands. It's going to be inauthentic a little bit at least.
Okay, fair point. Let's go to Collin on next.
Basically, I don't think it's going to really, I mean, it's sort of like that whole thing where it shouldn't, I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, we'll be able to watch it with sure, it's going to look weird without any fans, but like I said before, it's something that we're going to have to deal with for a little bit until we can figure out how to get a handle on this virus. So, it's
Fair
just
enough.
wait it out.
And finally, Chris.
So if the NFL does this, they're probably going to pull their virtual fans from Madden. So really, it's going to feel like you're watching a game of Madden, which is something I do like to do a lot.
Well, I mean,
I know that, Chris.
Yeah, Ben can vouch for me. Him and I have watched some Madden games before.
One of
Yep.
my favorite parts about the NFL and going to an NFL game, which I've only ever been to a Dolphins game against the Jaguars, a Steelers game against the Browns, and Browns games. But one of my favorite parts is whether you're watching it on TV or in person, at the stadium, is when the announcer goes, "It's third down," and the crowd's going, "Yay!" and making all this noise and I've always wondered with that, at this point, does that actually make a difference? Just in general, when you go to a Cavs game and the opponent's at the free throw line, they might put a picture of the Steelers logo on the Jumbotron in order to make fans boo, or, they have those thunder sticks, or if you're at a Major League Baseball game and it's 2 strikes in the bottom of the ninth, or in the top of the ninth, I should say, and the crowd's going crazy "Yay, get the strikeout and end the game, blah, 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 blah." Or I can't think of an example like that in hockey, but you get my
I
point.
can.
Okay, go.
Whenever someone's got the puck in hockey and they're near the net, everyone in the crowd yells, "Shoot."
That's true. The 3 of us can attest to that.
Yep.
But do you guys think that those types of atmospherics are just part of the game now, or do you think that some players still get distracted by that, or like I said, do you think it's just part of the game now? Start with Chris.
I think it's actually really part of the game now. I haven't talked to many professional athletes, but the few I have talked to have said kind of we just expect it at this point. It's not a distraction. It just feels like it's a natural part of the game to have the fans, cheering or shouting defense.
I forgot that one.
It's just a natural part of the game, and I think that with the whole crowd noise in, there's no substitute.
Wait a
It's
minute.
just not a decent substitute.
Okay. Wait a minute, though. What professional athletes have you talked to about this? You got to tell
Good
me.
question.
It's a good question.
Matt Bosher is chief among them. He is really good friends with my cousin David, and we had a discussion about this when I met him back in 2014.
Who does Matt Bosher play for?
He
Atlanta,
played for
he's
the
their punter.
Falcons.
Oh, punter for the Falcons. But you said professional athletes. So you made it plural. So what other professional athletes have you talked to about that?
Say singular.
Well, the only other one I've met is Cecil Shorts III, and we just took a picture together, so it was really only Bosher.
Oh, okay.
I missed that opportunity, Chris.
Yeah, but you went to a Cavs game, you lucky bastard.
Anyway, so Ben, what's your thought on the whole topic of crowd noise and fans chanting defense and everything else I said? Do you think it's part of the game, or do you think that sometimes players actually get distracted by the crowd noise?
I think it could go both ways. I agree with Chris where there's definitely athletes that definitely expect that to be part of the game. And then there are others, I would say more like in the newbie range or rookies that are not used to that atmosphere yet where it can be distracting.
Okay. I get that. And finish up with Collin.
So I think there's a clear divide between the professional sports, and then there's college football, which is a different atmosphere on its own.
Oh, I love college football.
That's
I mean,
true.
look at this. I'm gonna say this. There's a psychological difference when you play. There's a difference between playing let's give off a good example. Let's go with the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's a different environment, and they can get under your skin. I mean, there's one year where half of the Ohio State fans traveled to the Big House and nearly swamped them in that. I mean, just saying it's the difference, and Ohio State got to see Michigan get absolutely crushed. But that's another story. I would say that in terms of certain atmospheres, there is a psychological impact. But if you're playing at an NBA game, like an NBA stadium, there's maybe a couple that would work out. But I definitely know there's some MLS stadiums that have that atmosphere that could say, you know what, this looks pretty close to Europe, like the Portland Timbers, the
Seattle Sounders,
the Atlanta United, and I wish I would have seen how the atmosphere would have was in Miami International, but maybe we'll see in the future and see how that's.
Yeah.
I think the LA Galaxy is another one where their stadium has an atmosphere that's unmatched.
Yeah, but in terms of teams that I would think first, it would be my big three would be Atlanta, Portland, and Seattle.
Yes.
I would agree there.
If you're talking about best atmospheres in terms of the NFL, I would put Seattle and Kansas City as 1A and 1B. I would actually say
That's pretty
Put them in
good.
the S tier.
Huh?
Put them in the S tier, top tier.
Yes. I would say
Yes, here.
see, there's the traditional rivalries. When I say rivalry, you think of Ohio State, Michigan, the Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn, the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers.
The Boston Bruins and the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes. The Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. You get my idea. But
Yeah.
I would say Kansas City and Seattle have a little bit of not an on the field rivalry because they don't play each other every year. They play each other every 4 years because or every 3 years I think it is. But I would say they have more of a how should I say this?
Like a cultural rivalry in terms of
like crowd noise rivalry, if you will. Which, did you guys see the news that the Kansas City Chiefs are following the route of the Chicago Blackhawks by not disallowing fans from wearing Native American headdresses and Native American related face paint.
Really?
I mean, it was bound to happen.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah.
welcome to 2020. I mean, honestly, that sort of stuff. I mean, sure. I mean,
Cancel culture can be a bitch at times, I'll tell you that.
yeah.
Hold on,
the
Chris.
culture of
Colin, we're
today could be
talking.
different tomorrow. I mean, it was a lot different a couple hundred years ago, where people didn't really care, and now people have taken. There's enough people today that have an issue when it comes to certain of this stuff, and I agree with some of the sentiments. I really do, because it's just entirely weird. But no, it was eventually going to happen.
Yeah.
By the way, sorry if there were any distractions. My father just came home, so.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You're good. I forgot to mention the Chiefs are also looking into the Arrowhead chop where they have all the fans going, oh. I think I haven't heard anything from the Florida State Seminoles, who pretty much do the same type of thing.
Meanwhile,
And I didn't hear anything from the Atlanta Braves, who also do that same thing. So
I was honestly surprised that the University of Florida did something about their gator bait, which I thought was, that thing where they did it up and down.
yeah.
Apparently, there was some history where they were using like African American children as like bait, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that was just so weird. But I can't believe they stopped doing that. But I mean, I guess it's history, but
It's great.
I'm surprised that the Seminoles like have. I mean, I guess they're trying to. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know either.
It's just gonna be weird seeing like University of Florida playing. I don't know if Florida and University of Florida and FSU are rivals.
yes, they are. They play each
Yeah.
other.
That's a pretty big rivalry down south.
Yeah. They play each
I
other.
mean, it's just gonna be weird having one side just doing the arrow chop, the other fans like, well, what the frick are we gonna do? We can't do the gator bait anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who don't know, the Florida Gators are my favorite team in college football, followed by the Penn State Nittany Lions. Yeah.
Wasn't Joe Hayden from University of Florida or whatever? Or am I
Yes, he
wrong?
was. You are correct about that. So just wanted to do this once. It's great to be a Florida Gator. Said it's great to be a Florida Gator. You bet I was going crazy when Florida absolutely dismantled Ohio State in the national championship in like 2006.
Back when Urban Meyer was the coach of the Florida Gators.
And
Yeah.
I was thinking about that too. I was like, Urban Meyer, Florida, then Ohio State.
And now college football analyst for Fox.
Urban Meyer is the only coach to move from Florida to Ohio to coach.
But wait,
I think you know where I'm going with this one, Josh.
I'm trying to think.
He went from Tampa to Columbus, NHL coach.
Tortorella?
Yep, John Tortorella.
Didn't he have a stop in New York, though?
You also had
Yeah,
a stop in
and took them to the
Vancouver.
2014 Stanley Cup Finals, where they lost in 5 to the LA Kings.
Yes.
He also had a stint with, I think, Vancouver.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
But
That sounds right, yeah.
But on the subject of college coaches, that brings us to our next topic. Some college coaches have been able to successfully make the transition to pro sports, and some haven't. Like
Example, Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly was a prime example of somebody who was not able to make the transition to the pros. But guys like Brad Stevens successfully made the transition from college to the pros. He's done a fantastic job with the Boston Celtics. I still
Agreed.
say it should have been the Celtics in the 2018 NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. That would have been a much more interesting series than Cavaliers-Warriors round 4.
Only because I'm a Cavs fan, I disagree with you. Only because I'm a Cavs fan.
Hey,
Well,
I'm a Cavs fan myself. I'm just being honest.
Look,
That's
I'm gonna say
fine.
this. I would rather if the Celtics would have went on, I would have been fine with it. I would have got to see Terry Rozier in the finals.
Yeah. Plus, it would have been a very interesting matchup because you would have had Terry Rozier against Stephen Curry. You would have had Jaylen Brown against Klay Thompson. Jason Tatum against Kevin Durant. Let's see, who was Boston's power forward? Oh, Marcus Morris against Draymond Green. And then you would have had guys like Andre Iguodala coming in off the bench, along with guys.
Don't forget about Kyrie Irving on the Celtics.
Kyrie Irving
That's
was
true.
injured during the
They
2018.
run out of town.
He was injured during the 2018 playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Of course.
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yes. Which that was one of the best Game 7s I've ever seen, that 2018 Eastern Conference Finals. But anyway, so getting back to the main point before we went off on a little detour about the Boston Celtics, but that's perfectly fine. Like, Jim Harbaugh was able to make the transition from Stanford to the 49ers, and then he goes back to Michigan and can't beat Ohio State for his life. Billy Donovan was the head coach for the Florida Gators men's basketball team, and then he goes to OKC, and he seems to be doing well there. So why do you think it is that some college coaches have been able to successfully make the transition and some haven't? We'll start with Ben on this one because you seem like you really want to get into this.
To be honest with you on this, I think it all depends on the fit of the coach with the players sometimes.
Okay.
And also depends on how they operate. Because some people are more stricter on how they coach, what methods, versus some coaches where they're more open-minded to try new things. A lot of variables can play into that.
That's a fair point. Okay, let's go to Collin next.
Well, I mean, it honestly depends on the coach. You can either have someone and also you can't just compare like sports like basketball and football. It's like comparing apples to oranges. But I'll go say on football to keep things in balance. You can have a great coach like Jim Harbaugh who went from Stanford to 49ers, lead him to a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick, and then get run out by the management, by the front office of the 49ers to go back to Michigan, and you somehow can't beat them, but not going to dwell on that. Or you can have a terrible case where it's like the Atlanta Falcons had to endure with Bobby Petrino, where he was rising through the ranks, and I say rising because every time he would stick with a team like Arkansas and or the Blues, he'd be behind the scenes trying to get another team in that deal. And when he finally gets an offer with the Atlanta Falcons, he can't do anything because he can't mesh well with the culture. One of the things I found that if you want to know an example of how bad the culture was with the Falcons, Bobby Petrino had set a rule where players were not allowed to talk to each other during like meal breaks and stuff like that. And it's just created like a terrible chemistry, and Bobby Petrino did not do all that year. Plus, it didn't help that Michael Vick was arrested for dogfighting, but
I remember SportsCenter 2007 or 2008 when that was going on.
Yeah. But then he went back to Louisville, and where he stayed there for a couple of years, and while he was doing an interview for one of their networks, what did you call the thing that says important news on the bottom? Like, what's that called? Like, there's like important news at the bottom when you like sort of like on ESPN. Well,
the crawl.
The crawl. Well, on the crawl, while he was doing the interview, it said that Bobby Petrino was fired from as coach of the University of Louisville. I mean, insult to injury. You're doing the interview with them, and you just get in the crawl just says you're fired.
Wow. Okay, and Chris? What are you doing?
Fidgeting. But I do have my thoughts on this.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's like the situation with, like, you know how some college players, like some really good college players can't make it in the pros? It's like that. The better the college coach, the more mediocre they will be in the pros. Look at Nick Saban. the most legendary college coach in college football history, couldn't make it in the NFL.
I don't know if he's the most legendary. There's
He's not
some,
the-
there.
not the most
Dabo
legendary.
Sweeney is, waving hello on that one.
But I think in terms of dynasties, Alabama had a force to be reckoned with for many years to come.
And that's mostly due to Saban's coaching.
Right. I'm not.
I mean, I think now it's Dabo Sweeney. But back then, it was like, you got to look out for Alabama.
Right. But there have been countless coaches throughout college football who you could say are in legendary class. Like the Alabama coach who wore the hat on his head all the time. I forget his
Bear
name.
Bryant?
Yes, Bear Bryant. I think that's part of the reason why Alabama Stadium is called Bryant-Denny Stadium, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. You know, the coach that basically by that legacy.
I hate Alabama so much.
We all do, honestly.
I mean, it's sort of like the Patriots, where you hate them, but you also have to respect them for what they were able to do. They created a culture that lasted for years under the coaching. Many teams would have they would love to have that taste of glory, but they still have to. But the only thing they look forward to now is destroying Vanderbilt, so they can play the Rocky Top up 7 times.
Yes, but Alabama didn't cheat to win their championships, whereas the Patriots have cheated a few times to win their 6 Super Bowls. So how many of their Super Bowl championships are actually legitimate?
Yeah, but college
Probably
football.
the first 3.
Wait, hold on. College football has recruiting. It's a different ballgame there.
Yes, I agree. But another reason I strongly dislike Alabama is because you know how they have the rivalry with Auburn, the Iron Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So whenever Auburn wins like a big game or a national championship, whatever, they go to this place called Toomer's Corner where they have trees and they have they have this tradition of like throwing toilet paper over the trees. I don't know the history of that tradition.
I'm going to do that.
I don't know why that tradition started. All I know is that it continues, but there was an Alabama fan, Harvey Updike, who actually went and poisoned the trees on Toomer's Corner.
Wow. Okay.
Well, that's just a rotten egg. That's just a rotten apple in the whole bunch.
Yeah, like I get that it's a rivalry. Like, if I had to choose between Alabama and Auburn, I'm choosing Auburn all day. But I think, Auburn's my favorite team in the SEC West, but I'm pretty sure Florida and Auburn have a rivalry, if I remember correctly. Auburn seems to have a lot of rivalries, actually, because they're rivals with Georgia, the oldest rivalry in the South, I believe. You have the rivalry with them in Alabama, and apparently there's a rivalry with them in Florida. And I think there might be a rivalry with Auburn and LSU.
Yeah, because it's a very competitive.
Yes, Auburn and LSU do have a rivalry.
Okay. Where did you go, by the way?
Get there.
Oh, okay. You just missed a little conversation about, like, Auburn and an Alabama fan being a total a-hole.
I heard it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But on the subject of football, we're going to move back to the NFL, and things might get a little bit heated now because we're going to talk about Super Bowls.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm just surprised the Super Bowl happened this year.
Well, I'm hoping the Super Bowl happens this year because it's supposed to fall directly on my birthday at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida.
Nice.
Yes. It's not every year that it falls on my birthday. I think the last time I remember the Super Bowl falling on my birthday was Super Bowl 44 when the Saints played the Colts.
Wasn't that a classic one too?
Yep, Tracy, the biggest play of that game. Peyton Manning throws a pass. Tracy Porter says, "Oh, I know what route you're throwing or you're running." Reggie Wayne steps right in front of him and takes it back to the house, which sucked for me because Reggie Wayne's my favorite wide receiver of all time.
And Peyton Manning's my favorite quarterback of all time.
Peyton Manning is one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time.
Cole's nearly screwed him up, though. But
Yeah. But anyway, on the subject of Super Bowls, you know, we call the Kansas City Chiefs the Super Bowl 54 champions, and we call the Philadelphia Eagles the Super Bowl 52 champions. And we call the Baltimore Ravens the Super Bowl 47 champions. But, like, when you say the championship class of 2016, for example, you've mentioned the Pittsburgh Penguins, who won the Stanley Cup against the San Jose Sharks. You mentioned the Cleveland Cavaliers, who came back from a 3-1 deficit to beat the Golden State Warriors. You mentioned the
Chicago
Cubs.
Cubs.
Yep, the Cubs. And forget college football and college basketball for a second. But for college basketball, it was Villanova. Nova Nation, baby. They're my favorite team in college basketball. I actually have a hat from Villanova that I got at the Wells Fargo Center when I saw them play Georgetown. But anyway, the Denver Broncos won Super Bowl 50. And Super Bowl 50 took place in 2016. So, because of that, do you consider the Denver Broncos to be part of the 2016 Super Bowl class? Or, I'm sorry, not the 2016 Super Bowl class. Do you put the Denver Broncos with the 2016 champions, or do you put them with the 2015 champions? The Kansas City Royals, Chicago Blackhawks, and the Golden State Warriors. What year do Super Bowl champions belong to? The year that the Super Bowl physically happens, or the year that the season started? Does that question make sense?
Now I understand a lot better.
Okay. So, Chris, I know you are fired up about this question, so we're going to save you to the end. So, hold your horses. And we'll start with Ben on this one.
The year of the season being played.
Okay. Why do you say the year the season began?
Because getting to the Super Bowl, you're playing in let's say the Denver Broncos 2015 season. How do you get to the Super Bowl without playing the regular season or playoffs? So that is the result of the season and playoffs.
Okay. Fair point. Collin, what's your
I'm gonna pass on
viewpoint?
this. I'm gonna pass.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Chris. Let's hear it.
Well, now, there's been an interesting graphic passed around, if I could bring it up.
Oh, I know what graphic you're going to use. I said this to you.
Yes, and you will see what I mean, if I can find it. Oh, it's in sports. So, here's a list of all the champions in the 2010s. And now, if you look at 2016, which is where the Cubs start, the Denver Broncos are on that graphic as 2016 champions.
Okay.
So, it should be the year the championship game took place because of, because if it came down to it, if it came down to when the season started, the Penguins and the Cavaliers would be counted as 2015 champions because their seasons started in 2015, not 2016.
Yes, but here's the thing with that. a large chunk of the NBA and NHL season finishes after the new year. So whereas with the NFL, you may have one regular season game in January, like the week 17 game, and then the playoffs start. Like a majority of the NFL's regular season begins in the previous year. So like in the case of the Kansas City Chiefs, I would consider them to be 2019 Super Bowl champions because a majority of their season took place in 2019. Now, like I said, they might have had a regular season game in 2000 after the new year, like in week 17. Like it might have been on January 5th. Just saying it. If I'm wrong on the date, but
Yeah, I totally get that.
right. So that's why I would say you're incorrect a little bit, because and you can't really use an argument for Major League Baseball because Major League Baseball just does their whole season in 1 year.
Yes. It varies on the sport from what the answers are being said so far. If we're talking about NFL, you already heard my answer. But with NHL and the NBA, you can make a case for being the year that it's being played.
Right. So, like, you would say the Cavaliers won the 2016 NBA championship, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So, Chris and I are probably going to continue to disagree on this because I say the Super Bowl, like, again, nobody's really going to say, oh, the 2019 or 2020 Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl. You'll mostly hear, like, they won Super Bowl 54, which I like that this NFL does that.
That's more accurate to say because instead of saying the year, you're saying which number of that event that has happened, like the 54th,
Yeah.
for example.
I agree with that, Ben.
Yes, I 100% agree. And like I said, that's why I like that the NFL doesn't call their championship game like the 2019 NFL Final or
The 2019 Super Bowl.
Yeah, they just call it Super Bowl 54, or Super Bowl 55, Super Bowl 3, whatever. I prefer that. But staying on the topic of Super Bowls, in my first show with my cousin Eli Kaufman, we discussed this topic, but I like discussing repeat topics with other people because they might have different opinions on the subject.
Okay.
So the question is, should the quarterback automatically win Super Bowl MVP? Because, okay, I can see you have a definitive answer on this, Ben, and by the way you're shaking your head, I 100% agree. So just hold on 1 second. And
Okay.
Collin, it looks like you have a lot to say. So let's start with Chris on this. Okay, go ahead. So it sounds like this is going to be the hot topic. So let's start with Chris, and then we'll go Collin, and then we'll go to Ben, and then I want to jump in on this topic as well. So go ahead, Chris.
It shouldn't go to the quarterback. It should go to the player who either had the most memorable play or the best stats.
Okay.
Because that's how the MVP trophy is given in the NBA and the NHL, even though those are really not just one game, and those are like 7-game series.
Right. But you were saying like either a memorable play or because of stats. So can you give an example?
Of course. Everyone remembers Malcolm Smith from the Super Bowl 48 when he did that pick six
That was funny.
against
Denver.
against Peyton Manning, and people remember that play, so they automatically started voting him in to be MVP.
Plus the Seahawks.
I'm about to say Malcolm Butler. Am I wrong with Malcolm Butler on this?
He did not win Super Bowl MVP. Tom Brady did.
Right.
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah, Malcolm Butler was robbed.
Malcolm Butler should have been Super Bowl MVP for the Patriots in Super Bowl 49.
And I know it pains you to say that, Josh. I know it pains you to say that.
Yes, I am. My favorite NFC team is the Seattle Seahawks. So, yes, the ending to Super Bowl 49 hurt. But let's stay on topic. I don't want to go off on a tangent. So, Chris, that your Malcolm Smith thing was your example?
Yes.
I have a rebuttal to that.
Okay, Collin, you have a rebuttal? Go ahead.
So, without Tom Brady's four touchdowns, how did the Patriots win?
That's true. Okay, so are you saying, based on that, are you saying the quarterback should win Super Bowl MVP?
I think that's honestly, look, that question is a bit straight. I think when it comes to Super Bowl MVP, the quarterback is a very essential role. They're the guys that are for the majority part, driving the offense down the field. And with some of it being coming from the running back, but majority of it is their decision making, whether to call it all ball, they have a very essential role. So to say that 29 quarterbacks have won Super Bowl MVP because their role is that essential. Sure, we can make sometimes wonder, well, about the small guys like Malcolm Smith and all that, but there's some that Gary described. Tom Brady threw 4 touchdowns. Like I said before, without those touchdowns, where do you go? And Nick Foles. It looks like the Eagles would have been cooked if Nick Foles didn't step up and just basically balled out, even though Tom Brady had his best game on the line. Even with that Philly play, and it looked like both of those teams were going back and forth until Tom Brady fumbled the ball in the fourth quarter. So with that said, yeah, it does look like the quarterbacks get the most Super Bowl MVPs, but that's just because they play a very essential role in the offense. And there are times that, in the times like Von Miller,
He terrorized the Panthers.
offensively. 6 tackles, 2.5 of them being sacks, one pass defended. Like he was lights out on shutting down.
And he not only forced a fumble, but recovered the said fumble.
Yeah, against the Panthers with the white hot Cam Newton. Without his presence, he would have been such a terrorized a force on that defense. So what we should think is not why do quarterbacks get the most essential roles, but who's the player that makes the most impact on the game? And it may not just be one play, but just overall big picture.
Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
They already said what I wanted to say. That's the problem. MVP means most valuable player. And the most valuable player, yes, can be the quarterback because of how elite quarterbacks can be. But also, there are other players that can make extraordinary efforts and produce really well.
Okay. So I'm going to use Super Bowl 54 last year. So, Patrick Mahomes, he broke out into the NFL his first year, leads the Chiefs to the AFC Championship, which the Chiefs got so robbed in that game. First of all, why was D4 lined up offside on the game-sealing interception? What are you doing? You have to know where the line of scrimmage is. But secondly,
Back on task.
I've watched that kickoff return play countless times. And that's okay. And to this day, I believe that ball did touch I believe it was Julian Edelman's hands. So that should have been Kansas City ball. And the NFL needs to fix their overtime rules so that regardless of if the first team to touch the ball scores a touchdown, the other team gets a chance. But anyway, Mahomes leads the Chiefs to the Super Bowl in his second year, and he didn't play that great the first 3 quarters, right? He got picked off a couple times by the 49ers. Granted, Kyle Shanahan screwed up, so, you know.
I mean, it's Kyle Shanahan. It's a given.
Right. He reverted to his Super Bowl 51 version of himself. But I know Patrick Mahomes was getting good passes off and, you know, he hit that 11-step drop pass to Tyreek Hill. I get it. But who was the one that was creating a lot of those passing plays? Damian Williams. Think about this. Kansas City didn't have a great running game. I get it. Not every team that wins the Super Bowl has an amazing run game. But if you can consistently run the ball well, you bring those linebackers and the safeties. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Just
Okay.
a cough.
Okay, just making
Was
sure.
this before or after Kareem Hunt was cut? That's my big question.
Kareem Hunt was with the Browns last season.
Okay, just wanted to double check.
Yeah, no problem. So, if Kansas City, like I said, they didn't have a great running game, I should say. But Damian Williams was getting good chunks of yardage. And like I said, when you're able to run the ball consistently well, it brings the running or the defense.
Passing game.
Yes, it opens up the passing game. And I have Mahomes. So Damian Williams stat lines. He had 17 carries for 104 yards, but he also caught passes out of the backfield, which gave him a total of 133 yards. Plus, he had 2 touchdowns, including the one which sealed the deal in the fourth quarter. And if you go back and watch that game, you'll probably agree with me that, like I said, Mahomes didn't play well the first 3 quarters. And like I said, I think San Francisco intercepted him like 2 times, at least. And Kyle Shanahan just decided to screw up. So, specifically with last year, no, I don't think Patrick Mahomes should have won Super Bowl MVP. I think it should have been Damian Williams.
I'm going to defend it. I'm going to defend Patrick Mahomes right now. So,
go ahead.
If Patrick Mahomes didn't turn his performance around in the second half, the Chiefs wouldn't come anywhere close to winning at all. Jimmy Williams did a great job, but it drew the offensive end. But what if Patrick Mahomes couldn't struggle, and then Jimmy Williams got swamped by the defense? But they're like, okay, basically Patrick Mahomes is not doing that well. We might as well get off to. We must just expect a run. It's not his night. It's just that when it came to the clutch moment, when the game really mattered, Patrick Mahomes was able to deliver, able to throw the deep passes, and able to make the plays that count. Jimmy Williams did a great job, but like we said, the MVP goes to the most impactful player of the year. And I will say this: if the 49ers would have won that game, someone on that defense was going to get.
My guess would be Nick Bosa.
Yes.
But I still stand by my statement.
Garoppolo did not do much during Super Bowl 54.
That's how I saw Garoppolo. It was just Rasheed Mostert just running through that thing.
Right.
And isn't that Derrick Henry? He can't carry an offense on his own.
But I'm saying like he's like a torpedo. He's just skewing through the water.
Right.
I got a good question
now. Point had Raheem Mostert.
Okay. Okay. What's your question, Ben?
Whenever people talk about backup quarterbacks for the New England Patriots when Tom Brady was around, like Garoppolo, Mallet, etc., they were hyped up a little bit. After they got traded, some of them did not live up to the hype. And I'm still evaluating Jimmy G.
That's
Do you
fair.
think that they're overrated just because they sat next to Tom Brady sometimes? Or
Go ahead.
do
Go
they
ahead.
have a reason to overhype or hype them up?
Well, because people assume that they have the coaching under Bill Belichick, and they expect. I mean, they see what Bill Belichick was able to do to a sixth-rounder quarterback and transform him to like one of the greatest players of all time. They expect some results out of those guys. Now, I would say that for Jacoby Brissett, he has done an adequate job with the Colts. He ain't Andrew Luck, but for what I would have expected him after Andrew Luck suddenly retired, did a good job.
Yeah.
I agree.
But for Jimmy Garoppolo, like he's got to work on. I would say he's got to work on his game if he wants to become a bigger impact. Because Rasheed Mostard's going to get figured out, and
Right.
but I mean
That was your main point with Ryan Tannehill as well, that he needs to work on his game. Otherwise, defense is going to start to figure out Derrick Henry, and the Titans are going to go from a Cinderella story into a disaster.
Well, there's a difference with the Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill came from the Miami system, and I'll have to say this: half the time he was injured. It was like Heckle and Heckle. It was like Dr. Hyde and Mr. Jekyll. He was half the time he was injured, and I felt they wasted his prime in Miami. And then he starts showing flashes of brilliance with the Titans. So in that case, it's a different story. But I think with Jimmy Garoppolo, that's why I think quarterback is essential. You do well, you can transfer the team around and make it completely different. That's why the Chiefs were feared with Patrick Mahomes. Not necessarily Lamar Jackson, who just could just run around, draw the offensive end, throw a dime pass back into the backfield.
Right.
Sort of like a Cleo Tate of the University of Arizona story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bear down, Arizona.
Arizona, bear down and disappoint me more with us. That was painful.
Yeah, Ben, if you didn't know,
Okay.
Collin went to the University of Arizona for how many years?
I went there for 2 years.
Oh, okay. That must be interesting. Don't they have a good basketball program there?
Oh, they have a fantastic basketball program. They had DeAndre Ayton, and it was fun. It was a fun team to watch, honestly, until we got after that whole cheating scandal with Sean Miller and the assistant coach. Well, John Miller was never found caught, so it was just the assistant coach who had his hand caught in the cookie jar. But that's a tangent. We were expecting to go far because we had DeAndre Ayton and we had a good cast of players. And then we get beaten to hell by Buffalo.
Well, Buffalo's not your average team from the MAC. They're a good team.
I know. Buffalo's good, but like we had high expectations for us.
Right.
Hope.
I went to the MAC championship last year when Buffalo played Bowling Green.
Yeah,
and Buffalo dominated that game from start to finish.
Yeah, but we were expected to go far.
Yes, you were.
The first round. That was just. It's not that like Buffalo was a great team, but we were supposed to keep it close.
Yeah, and Buffalo just said no.
Buffalo just said, "Hey, DeAndre Ayton, who is we're just going to keep scoring you guys." Thank goodness Virginia decided to lose to the University of Maryland and Baltimore County. Otherwise, we would have been the biggest laughing stocks of that year.
Yeah, and then Virginia said, "Oh, we're gonna come out and win the national championship."
Yeah, well, I was hoping it was for Texas Tech.
Yeah, I was rooting for Texas Tech.
Yeah,
I was rooting for Texas Tech as well.
Anyways, that football season when I watched Coyote play, he was something to watch. And then next season they decided we're going to run a West Coast offense, and he's not
screwed him.
He's not a pocket passer. He's like a Lamar Jackson type of player.
Yeah,
right.
Wasted him.
I remember when College Game Day went to Arizona for their game against UCLA.
I know, right?
Yeah.
College Game Day not going to an SEC game? What?
Well, you think SEC bias is a real thing? The people in the Pac-12 complain about not having a fair enough representation with their football programs. there was one time where the University of Washington made fun of the sportscasters by saying that, Pac-12 is nothing but a bunch of cupcakes. But
Yeah, and then Washington made the college football playoff against Alabama and got absolutely stomped.
wait, Washington.
Yep.
That was the year people were saying it should have been Penn State, or there was a third team in the discussion that year too.
Wait,
I forget.
Washington.
Was that the year that Clemson shut out Ohio State?
It might have been.
Or was that the year that the championship ended up being Alabama versus Georgia?
No. I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, then I know what year you're talking about.
Oh yeah, they did make it. It was like it wasn't a total beatdown. It was like 24-7, which was honestly.
Well, that's expected of Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a shutout, 31-0.
Right, like what happened with Ohio State and Clemson, which because of their last year with, there's controversy from that game. I don't think it was pass interference, but Ohio State fans all the time say, no, it
if it happened,
pass
my
interference.
problem is that if it happened the other way around, it's like I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem with the ruling, which is like you can't clearly define it. So why the frick is it a rule?
Right.
That's sort of like very.
So I hate to interrupt this, but I did just get news that the Philadelphia Flyers beat the Montreal Canadiens 3-2 to advance to the second round.
All right.
Oh, they escaped. They escaped embarrassment.
And we'll potentially get the other clinching game tonight if Vancouver can beat St. Louis, which, even though I'm a Blues fan, I would not be as upset this season because of given the current circumstances.
But
Yeah.
at least
That game actually starts in like 3 minutes.
Right, I know. So,
Gosh,
Tomorrow, the Stars and Avs play.
yep. Sunday is the Indianapolis 500, so that should be fun.
Can't wait for that.
But I think it's about time to wrap things up. So I hope you guys had as much fun making this video as I did. Everybody
That
gave
was great.
yes. Hey, Josh, could I just say one quick thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
When we were talking about which is the toughest sport to predict or toughest thing, you know what the real toughest thing to predict is? March Madness.
Yes.
yes.
Yes. I was so mad that we didn't have March Madness this year. There were so many
too.
teams.
And plus, Josh had tickets because it was in Cleveland.
Why do you have to
Oh,
remind
wow.
me? Oh.
See what
I
I
hope
did?
that was a great last point that I made. I hope it is.
Yeah, it was. There were so
Yeah.
many teams in contention. Kentucky, Baylor, Kansas, Michigan State, Duke. Who knows? Maybe Villanova could have made a run. Wisconsin. You just never know. One quick thing before we go. I know that Ohio State and Wisconsin aren't in the same division within the Big Ten, but I still wish they played each other every year in the regular season.
It's always, a good match.
just as much as I wish that Notre Dame would actually join a conference.
Yes. Let's actually
that's
talk
the one
about
thing.
Let's actually talk about Ohio State and Wisconsin before we wrap up. This will be the final point or final conversation. So, the regular season game between Wisconsin and Ohio State, where the Buckeyes absolutely stomped Wisconsin, like 39-7, I think it was, or something. I would say that was an anomaly. Usually, it's a great game between these two teams. Like, I can think of 3 examples, like in 2010, when Ohio State was the number 1 team They go to Wisconsin, who is ranked number 18, and Wisconsin absolutely pounded them 31-18.
That's what Ohio State does. I mean,
Huh?
that's the bad thing about Ohio State. They have a great tendency of laying a gigantic goose egg when it matters.
Right.
Just like the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well,
Stay on topic, Chris.
they lay a goose egg when it's not even a game that matters. Like Purdue, that game they were unranked and they get absolutely stomped.
Yep.
I'm like,
Oh, you mean like how Ohio State went to Iowa and got absolutely slapped?
yeah, it's like, but I mean, that's a great thing. I mean, this year now, I think current Iowa State team. I mean, any team in the Big Ten, good luck trying to compete on the level of recruiting that Ohio State has. I mean, the only team. I mean, sure, Clemson has the number, but it's just this. But enough about what I said. Like that's the tail side of Ohio State. They just lay goose eggs sometimes.
Right. The other examples I can think of with Ohio State and Wisconsin were the 2014 Big Ten championship. Ohio State was down to their third string quarterback. They're ranked number 5. They're playing the number 13 Wisconsin Badgers. They're trying to not only win the college or the Big Ten championship, but also impress the college football playoff committee so they can make the playoff, the first integration of it. And somehow Ohio State went on to win. And then the third example was the Big Ten championship from last year. The three of us watched it in the Falcons Fest. Shout out to Notre Dame College, of which I am an alumni now. Go Falcons. I like the reference to our school with the blue shirt, Chris. Or I'm sorry, Collin. Wow, I don't know how I screwed that one up.
Oh, this is a polo shirt.
I know. I'm just saying. You just happen to be wearing blue.
You said at the top of the video that I'm repping the Monsters.
Oh, it was a mistake. Sorry. All right. So, anybody else want to say anything about Ohio State and Wisconsin?
Barely.
If Wisconsin's able to have enough resources and recruitment, they'd be able to match up to Ohio State. But as of now, Ohio State's a different animal. So,
Okay.
I mean, until they can get better recruitment tactics, it's just like Dave Portnoy said when he saw Michigan absolutely stomped by Ohio State. Ohio State's on a different level.
Okay. And that is going to be it. We are done. Until next time, this is UngarToTheMax signing off. I hope you enjoyed today's video.